Let's begin with the moment that stopped people in their tracks. A motel room. 7 people, one space, mold on the floors, rotten food in the corner, dirty laundry piled up on beds, a toddler crawling through a mess of damp towels, crumbs, and flies. And just outside that same room, a dumpster swarming with ants. This was the exact moment the internet realized something wasn't just messy, it was dangerous. Stephanie Jenkins, better known as Resilient Jenkins, on TikTok had built an entire identity around being a strong, protective mother. But what viewers were seeing did not look like a resilience, it looked like neglect. And it wasn't just one bad day, this wasn't a rare moment of chaos, this was daily life. This story wasn't just about one motel. Stephanie and Drew were once living in a one-bedroom apartment where all 5 children had to sleep in the living room and kitchen. The pets, 4 cats, they failed to properly care for. But once they lost this apartment, they moved into the infamous motel room that soon became a case study of what not to do as parents. Let's look deeper into what unfolded. Poor aeration, 7 bodies, moldy floors, the outside dumpster stench seeping in. Every breath in that room was thick, stale, and potentially dangerous. Stephanie herself admitted that the entire family, including a newborn, had developed a terrible cough. And this wasn't the kind of cough that comes and goes. This was persistent, the kind that wakes children up at night and leaves them tired in the morning. The health conditions inside that room were alarming and only worsened by Stephanie's insistence on cooking deep-fried meals in the same room. She regularly used a hot plate, air fryer, and griddle, all plunged into the same corner outlet right next to the TV and dangerously close to bedding and clothing. The room was already stuffy and unventilated, yet the smell of grease and smoke filled the air every single day. At one point, she even joked on live that the room smelled like a diner. Except diners have exhaust fans. The room had none. The air was heavy, greasy, and possibly toxic. Not just uncomfortable, but unhealthy.
This vision for this chicken. I did some seasoned chicken. Y'all know what seasonings I use, so I don't think I need to repeat that.
Why is Stephanie Jenkins literally cooking a meal on a hot plate right next to a television that is clearly on? I am no expert by any means, guys, but one thing I do have is common sense, and my common sense tells me that it is not smart to cook right next to a television. And look, I understand the Resilient Jenkins are living in a motel room, 7 people in a motel room, so there's not much space, but why, Stephanie, why are you cooking next to a television? And even worse, it's on. Oh my god, girl, what is going on over there in that motel room? Why? Just... I don't even know what to say about that. That is just... Yeah. Jenkins family, I hope you have the Portland, Oregon Fire Department on speed dial, because...
This setup wasn't just reckless, it was a direct health risk to the 5 children forced to live in it. And the worst part, it did not have to be this way. Stephanie's defense, at least I cook and clean. But the meals were often 100% grease with excessive seasoning, made in unsafe conditions that posed a fire risk and a health concern. She would take pride in showing off deep-fried chicken, overloaded burgers, and vegetables drowning in oil, all while the room filled with thick smoke and her children sat close by. Her cooking setup was a mix of scattered cords, hot appliances near flammable materials, and overall disregard for safety. She did not just cook for a few minutes, she often went live for entire meal preps, sometimes juggling multiple hot appliances in a cramped space with kids walking around. On more than one occasion, she filmed herself cooking while a child sat only inches away from sizzling oil, with no protective barrier, no thought for bans, and no regard for how quickly things could spiral into disaster. She called it making do. Others called it reckless. Hygiene was out of the window. Piles of laundry, dirty dishes attracting flies, crumbs on every surface, and a baby crawling through cluttered walkways that doubled on storage for everything from used diapers to damp towels. You'd see food left on the floor after meals, milk spilled and never wiped, and wrappers collecting under beds. It wasn't just untidy, it was unsafe. There were clothes dropped over chairs, food stained sheets, and leftover meals left out in the open for hours. Dirty bottles sat for days. At one point, she even hung wet clothes on her children's beds straight from the laundromat, risking mold buildup and skin irritation.
What's with these parents blaming other parents for things that kids do? Like, y'all don't actually have kids yourselves. Because when I tell you, I've definitely tried to instill a clean mindset, a tidy mindset with my children, but they got no interest in it. My kids stay steady walking over stuff like it doesn't even bother them. Meanwhile, if I trip on one thing, it's instant clean mode for me. No, I don't mind cleaning. I find it soothing, but I don't want to be doing it all day. And I will be doing it all day if I don't have these kids help out a little bit. Because they very much get into one thing and then they're done with it and move on to the next thing, but they'll just leave whatever they were on previously completely wherever. In sense, wherever ends up being currently in everybody's walk space. Cleanup has been happening 2-3 times a day, every day. The outside viewer likes to put this on the mama. Like, hey, why can't she keep it tidy home for her babies? Like, girl, you think I ain't trying? I just said 2-3 times a day, but my babies have other plans. And if you honestly think you need to tell me that a living situation that is better suited for our kids would make all the difference, come on, duh. Do you honestly think I don't want the space too? Come on now. This mama can't wait to have a better living situation. All right, thanks for watching.
Another time, viewers spotted roaches crawling on the wall mid-live. There was no routine, no schedule, no plan. She claimed she cleaned twice a day, but if that's true, why did everything still look this way? Why did every corner of the motel room look like it had not seen a proper cleaning in weeks? Why did viewers still spot the same stains, the same piles, and the same clutter on every live? And if cleaning was really a priority, why did the camera always avoid certain angles? A motel cleaner named Lila later revealed the reality. Stephanie and Drew's room was the most disgusting in the entire complex. Lila, who had cleaned multiple units across the property, said that the stench from their room would hit her before she even opened the door. The smell of old food, mildew, and stale air was overwhelming, sometimes making her physically nauseous. On multiple occasions, she said she had to open all the windows and let the air out for hours before she could begin cleaning. She described the room as being trashed on every occasion, trashed bags piled in corners, peels left to dry on surfaces, and food crumbs littering the floor from wall to wall. Dishes were often left unwashed for days, food wrappers shoved behind furniture, and there was always a film of grime on nearly every surface. She even mentioned once stepping on a half-eaten chicken nugget that had molded over, leaving a black smudge on the carpet. The smell, she said, would cling to her clothes long after she finished her shift. The bathroom, she said, was especially appalling. Mold creeping along the edges of the tub and sink, used razors left in the shower, and wet towels crammed into a corner with visible mildew spots. One time, Lila found a soiled diaper behind the bathroom door, rotting for what seemed like days, and flies had already laid eggs in a nearby trash bin. It wasn't just laziness, it was active disregard for hygiene and the children's well-being. Layla even recalled seeing spoiled food containers leaking onto the floor and flies buzzing around the room as if it was a garbage unit, not a living space. The fridge, when opened, released a wave of putrid air, packed with expired milk, moldy leftovers, and mystery containers with green fuzz. It wasn't just disorganized, it was dirty beyond neglect.
Layla, the resilient Jenkins, cleaning maid, ex-household keeper, however you want to call her. So apparently she was let go from that job. And I'm assuming because she does not get paid enough to do what she has to do and clean up for what she has to clean up. So she is coming out and talking about the resilient Jenkins and basically revealing all the secrets that we pretty much already knew but didn't have actual evidence for. But she clearly states, you know how the resilient Jenkins always say every 28 days they have to pack up what they need for the night and go stay somewhere else, yada, yada, yada. Well, this girl was the one that had to go clean the rooms. And she states, of course, we already know, Stephanie leaves the place trashed, which we already see that anyways. Every room's a mess, disaster. Dishes piled up on the floor, bugs crawling on them. The bathroom, it's like nobody picks up after herself, period, and it's just stuff everywhere. Anyways, besides the point, this girl says because she lost her job, she's finally speaking out.
And what made it worse was how Stephanie curated a completely different picture for her audience. This exposed the fact that Stephanie only cleaned what the camera saw. A wiped countertop there, just enough to convince followers she was doing her best, while hiding the chaos and filth that surrounded her children behind the scenes. It was all an illusion, a carefully angled lie, a performance of parenthood, of parenthood, while the reality remained completely unfit for children. There are 4 cats abandoned, thrown outside before the eviction like yesterday's trash. One was seen limping, struggling to walk properly. Another had water thrown on it. An act caught on video that many viewers said was clearly intended to drive the animal away. Stephanie insisted they were outdoor cats, but they weren't. They had been indoor pets for their entire lives, not used to the outdoor and certainly not prepared to survive it. Instead of seeking help, shelter, or veterinary support, Stephanie chose to leave them behind. They were sick, flea-infested, and visibly suffering. And even when neighbors and viewers offered to adopt the cats, Stephanie declined. She said she did not trust the offers, even though some came from people who had helped her before. 2 cats were rescued by neighbors who refused to let them suffer further. The remaining 2 left to fend for themselves in an unfamiliar world.
After debating for some time, we decided we will not have indoor cats when we move. So at one point we did have 4 cats in this apartment. That seriously did not last long, not even more than a couple of weeks. And if they want to go outside, let them outside, they're animals. I know you're thinking, well, what about the cats if you guys didn't find a place to go and you didn't find anywhere for the cats to go? Despite the mantra that everybody blew me up and wanted everybody to believe, I never wanted to abandon these cats. Decided we will not have indoor cats when we move. But from my research, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but all of the shelters and sanctuaries in my area are tapped out for resources. I wasn't able to find any family or friends to take them while we try to figure this whole situation out. It's freaking sad, and I don't think many people are going to understand it, but I had to make the decision of actually calling animal control back myself and asking them to take the cats because I don't want these fur babies actually to be abandoned. That's the last thing I freaking want. And again, I don't know if that's something my mom has mentioned. Oh, I'll take the cats. I don't give 2 shits. I'm not dealing with her. To me, that's literally no different than welcoming my ex back into my life. You just don't welcome back people that have given you nothing but traumatic experiences.
Eventually, the neglect caught up. Stephanie was charged with animal neglect and banned from owning pets for 2 years. But for many, that sentence felt like too little, too late, especially considering how long the animals had been visibly mistreated and how avoidable it could have been. With Drew glued to his PS5 and Stephanie busy filming or cooking, their 10-year-old daughter had no choice but to take care of the baby. This wasn't just a one-time event, it became a routine. Viewers often spotted her carrying the baby, feeding both, or rocking the infant to sleep while her parents argued on live or cooked their next overly seasoned meal. There were times she was also seen trying to calm the baby while a toddler ran wild around her, clearly overstimulated and unsupervised. And in every one of those moments, the responsibility never shifted back to the parent. Stephanie admitted this herself, brushing it off as helping out or being a big sister. But the reality was far more disturbing. The child wasn't just helping, she was replacing. She became the default caregiver, the one expected to soothe, supervise, and keep the peace, while the adults prioritized content and convenience. This child was taking on the role of a second parent, changing diapers, calming tantrums, and even taking over supervision when her parents wanted uninterrupted phone time. She was made to mature far too quickly, carrying emotional weight that no 10-year-old should bear. It's not just sad, it is deeply unfair. A child should not be the second parent, especially in a home with 2 able-bodied adults.
So I was right, you guys. In one of her latest lives, Stephanie's like, oh, I understand that you play video games, Drew Jenkins, and you have to finish a task before you can save or before you do something else. But your lady, she's referring to herself, your lady is so stressed out trying to get dinner ready with a baby and a toddler and a 10-year-old who's taking care of the kids and is stressed out. Oh, you guys, I told you. How many times did I tell you that that 10-year-old was the one that was taking care of Momo? But everybody wanted to call and dog me and say, no, just because she wants to carry her little sibling doesn't mean that she takes care of the kid. I'll take my apology now, because Stephanie Jenkins said that the 10-year-old takes care of the baby. So, yeah, just wanted to go ahead and rub that in a little bit, because I'm right 99% of the time. Only my tism makes it a little bit difficult to discern, and it makes me cold. I'm not cold. I'm very matter of fact.
Her development, her needs, and her right to carefree adulthood were quietly sacrificed, so her parents could continue the chaos without interruption. And no matter how much Stephanie tries to dress it up as teamwork, It's not parenting, it is neglect disguised as convenience. Stephanie often locked herself in the car to go live while her toddler played unsupervised. Not just for a few minutes, sometimes for hours. She'd roll up the windows, put on music, and fully immerse herself in the audience while her child played outside or roamed the motel with no adult inside. She wasn't glancing out the window or periodically checking in. She was fully absorbed, talking, venting, performing. There were even moments she admitted she couldn't hear what was going on outside because the windows were up. It wasn't multitasking. It was a complete disconnect. Sometimes she even brought snacks and drinks with her into the car, preparing herself for a long stream session like she was clocking in for a shift. Meanwhile, her toddler wandered barefoot near traffic-heavy parking lots or lingering near strangers coming in and out of the motel. People passing by would notice the child alone and confused, unsure whether to intervene. The motel staff reportedly had to redirect the child more than once, and viewers began recognizing the pattern. Viewers would comment asking where the kids were, and Stephanie would vaguely say they were fine or playing right outside. But there was no visual confirmation, no signs of supervision, no indication that anyone was actively watching the children, including a toddler known for wandering. One concerned viewer even commented, "We just saw your kid run past the window." To which Stephanie laughed and said, "He's fat." Viewers were skeptical, especially since Drew never directly denied it. He did not defend himself, did not respond to the woman, and did not try to clear his name. He stayed silent, avoided the topic, and let Stephanie fight his battle for him. And the longer he stayed silent, the more people believed the story was true. The silence said more than any words ever could. It was loud, uncomfortable, and confirming. And once again, Stephanie's loyalty came at the cost of her own dignity. Deshawn's mother, Desiree, was painted as a deadbeat by Stephanie. But in truth, she had been blocked from seeing her son for years. Stephanie and Drew controlled the narrative, telling TikTok followers that Desiree had abandoned Deshawn and did not care. They even hinted that Desiree had legal issues, trying to discredit her completely. But behind the scenes, Desiree was sending messages, making calls, showing up to court dates, and trying to find legal help to reconnect with her child. She reached out to Stephanie multiple times, begging for a chance to speak to her son, only to be ignored or told she was causing drama. She even documented every attempt, screenshots of texts left unread, missed calls, voicemails pleading for peace, not because she wanted drama, but because she wanted proof. The kind of proof a mother collects when she knows people are trying to erase her.
Hey Stephanie, hey Drew, when are you going to get on here and tell everybody how you took Deshawn from his mother? This is part 2 of the Resilient Kidnappers and me explaining what's going on with Desiree, Drew's other baby mom. So, like I said before, Desiree Career is Deshawn's mother, not Stephanie. Stephanie is not even his stepmom because Stephanie is literally married to somebody that SA'd their own mother. Oh, and she's still married to him. Yes, she is still married to him. I'm not going to read all this, y'all can pause, but look right here in this paragraph. She also has been reaching out to Drew so that she could visit her son, and he just ignores her. Now imagine trusting your baby dad to take care of your child while you get back on your feet, and then that they're going to give them back to you, but then they get a new girlfriend, and then the girlfriend's like, no, stop talking to her. She's not getting the son back. Boom, that's it. And then being that mother and getting on TikTok just to see your son going through a hard time when they could literally be with you living in a motel with their dad and their girlfriend trying to be their stepmother. And he is very obviously being treated differently. If y'all could please go to Desiree's page and donate to her GFM or at least share it. All these lies that Stephanie keeps coming up with about Desiree but showing no proof just shows y'all the type of person that she is.
After going viral, she finally spoke out and took Drew to court. She won visitation rights, but Stephanie and Drew continued to violate the order, blocking visits and even bringing other kids to distract Deshawn during the only visit that happened. They claimed Deshawn was too emotional or not ready, using his confusion as a shield for their defiance. They would cancel visits last minute, claiming he was sick or say he wasn't in the mood. Even during supervised visits, they found subtle ways to sabotage the process, from refusing to communicate clearly with Desiree to making passive-aggressive comments in front of the child. Stephanie once went live after a visit, claiming Desiree had made Deshawn cry, painting her again as the villain without giving her a voice to defend herself.
Oh, thank you guys. I knew it wasn't, he's not going to abide by any rules. That's the whole thing. He's not going to abide by anything. Right. I'll try to keep my head up, guys.
Drew, too, would add fuel to the fire, saying Deshaun shut down after visits as if his emotional response was a weapon, not a sign that he missed his mother and did not know how to navigate this maze. It wasn't just resistance, it was strategic obstruction. And it wasn't about protecting Deshaun, it was about control, about power, about punishing a mother who dared to speak out. After years of silence, it was about preserving the image they had built online, an image that would collapse the second Desiree was allowed to tell her truth. Desiree launched a GoFundMe to afford legal fees. She explained how much she'd already spent trying to gain visitation rights, how expensive the legal process was, and how desperate she was to be in her son's life again. It was a cry for help, raw, honest, and supported by court documents and receipts. She did not post vague rants or emotional bait. She came with receipts, literal paperwork, court dates, and messages showing years of effort to be present in Deshaun's life. It wasn't performative, it was her last resort. Stephanie responded with her own, asking for money to defend her right to keep Deshaun. But unlike Desiree, she did not provide legal documentation. She did not show where the money would go. She just went live, cried to her followers, and claimed Desiree was trying to take her child.
The Resilient Jenkins now officially have a GFM up and running. They have put in the description that it's to secure legal assistance and better their children's lives. Stephanie wrote in the bio that they were really hesitant about even starting this GFM, but they feel like they are just as deserving of legal support on their side as Desiree is on hers. They said that they want to maintain the safety and placement of a kiddo who is perfectly happy with his family. And please be assured that every single penny that is received, they will provide a receipt for. Stephanie went on to say in her FB post that it was humbling to even make this GFM. She said that they wanted to make one while they were in the apartment, but they knew that they had to get back up on their feet by themselves, and it just isn't feasible. She said Drew's going back to work, and she makes just as much at home as a content creator as she would at work, which is probably true. However, if they had both been working from the very get-go, they probably wouldn't be in this situation. I did see on their live today that Drew said that he didn't work because of a mental health break. It was some heart conditions and a seizure, and then it was because he didn't want to, because he didn't like people telling him what to do, and then his autism, and now it's his mental health. Y'all, I just don't even know what to say at this point. I really don't even know what to say anymore. As always, let's talk about this one in the comments and let me know your thoughts on this. I mean, will this possibly be mass and taken down, or do y'all think that they'll reach their goal? Let's talk about it.
She framed it as a custody attack, not a reunion between a mother and son. She never showed court paperwork, never explained legal fees, and never once outlined how the funds would be spent. It was emotional manipulation packaged as a fundraiser, and the public wasn't having it. Why should anyone support someone who violated court orders and kept her mother from her child? Why reward someone who used live streams to manipulate sympathy while ignoring a child's right to both parents? This backlash was instant, with many calling it a money grab, not a legal defense. It wasn't about justice, it wasn't about fairness, it was about control, image, and ego. And people saw straight through it. In a heartbreaking moment, Drew went live with Deshaun sitting behind him. While he talked about how the boy did not want to leave his family, Deshaun looked down the entire time, not speaking, just nodding occasionally, like coached or too overwhelmed to say what he really felt. The live wasn't about Deshaun's feelings, it was about shaping a narrative, a performance for sympathy, and it worked. Commenters flooded in, calling Desiree selfish, accusing her of trying to break apart a happy home. But court orders were clear. Deshaun deserved time with both parents. He had a legal right to be with his biological mother, to know her, bond with her, and build a relationship outside of TikTok lives and false narratives. But the Jenkins were poisoning the well, using their platform to sway public opinion, making it harder for Desiree to show up without judgment or bias. It wasn't co-parenting, it was manipulation in plain sight. And Deshaun was caught in the middle of a custody war he never even asked for. Stephanie began hinting that they were looking at homes and schools out of state. She mentioned it casually during a late night live, saying she was done with this era. done with this area, and wanted a fresh start somewhere new. But when pressed by viewers about what that meant for Dishon's court-ordered visitation schedule, she got defensive, saying, "I can move if I want to. No one owns me." That is when the concern exploded. People began to worry. Was she planning to flee with Dishon to avoid the custody agreement? Was she setting up a situation where Desiree would be cut off again, just when the court had finally enforced contact? Instead of fixing the living conditions that led to CPS visits, Stephanie blamed haters and even suggested Desiree was sending CPS to snatch her kids. She framed the visits as coordinated attacks, not legitimate concerns. She went live multiple times, crying, yelling, and claiming that people were trying to ruin her family, and while avoiding any mention of the moldly floors, neglected hygiene, or unsupervised toddlers that triggered the investigation in the first place. In one particularly chaotic live, she shouted into the camera that CBS had no right to keep showing up and claimed she was being stalked by viewers who wanted to see her kids taken away. She used TikTok to sway public opinion, not to protect her children. She weaponized sympathy, posting vague captions like "CPS showed up again, pray for us," with sad music and crying emojis. Another time, she posted a black screen with crying audio and the caption, "I'm scared, please don't let them take my babies," prompting hundreds of comments from viewers offering prayers, gifts, and even money. And viewers who did not know the full story often took her side, leaving supportive comments and blaming the system. Some even accused CPS of bullying a good mom or going after poor people. Meanwhile, nothing changed. The room stayed dangerous, the routine stayed broken, and the children stayed at risk. The same mold, the same clutter, the same neglected chaos, now just hidden behind a wall of digital sympathy and performative tears. And then there's Drew. And then there's Drew's other son. His ex, Alita, took him to court over unpaid child support. She'd been struggling to raise their child alone, while Drew made excuse after excuse. He avoided jobs to dodge payments, telling the court he was applying but never following through. He even claimed he had steady work when he did not, going so far as to fabricate schedules and submit false documents. It was a clear attempt to stall the legal process and avoid responsibility. Eventually, the court saw through the lies and forced him into a delivery job and the threat of penalty. But even with the court intervention, Drew still hasn't paid a cent. The arrears keep piling up. Now he faces serious consequences, losing his driver's license, garnished wages, or even jail time. And still, Stephanie defends him, calls it a misunderstanding, says the system is unfair. But the truth is, Drew has another child out there, neglected and forgotten, while he sits at home gaming for 20 hours a day and playing victim on TikTok Live. Stephanie and Drew are a case study in what happens when the wrong choices keep getting justified. They've had money. They've had second chances. But at every turn, they've chosen chaos, lies, and online clout over their children's well-being. And those kids, they're the ones paying the price. There is more to this series. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments. Like and subscribe to stay locked in for the next part.